Hello everyone, welcome to Dr. Rajkumar IAS KAS Academy. I am Anne D'Souza. Today in this video we will be discussing Prelims 2025 question paper, especially ecology and environment questions. So let's delve into the first question, what we have it here. So most of the questions, before I start with, I would say that we have this blurred line between ecology and geography and science and technology. Speaking of that, we have a few questions which can be called as exclusively environment questions, and most of the questions when we look into today's this current year's question paper, a pattern is slightly changed as well. So if we divide the questions, like environmental conservation and degradation questions are more, and when compared to biodiversity questions, that also we can see in this question paper. So let's take up the first question. The first question is based on again carbon. Carbon is a very trendy word or a prefix usually UPSC focuses on. So throughout the year, even maybe if you have seen in the current affairs, more topics or current affairs were based on carbon itself. So here let's go through the first statement. Activated carbon is a good and attractive tool to remove pollutants from effluent streams and to remediate contaminants from various industries. So first of all, one should know what is activated carbon. So activated carbon can be called as an adsorbent. What we see in the second statement, let me read it for you. Activated carbon exhibits a large surface area and a strong potential for absorbing heavy metals. So usually we hear the word absorption. The word absorption and adsorption are two different things. Absorption is where in a given phase in the sense liquid, anything that is immersed into that liquid, it is drawn into the solution. That is called as absorption. Say for example, you put a paper towel inside water. So what happens is it is absorbing the paper towel. So when it comes to adsorption, if this is a surface, so the molecules will be on the top of the surface rather than it gets drawn into the surface. That is the striking feature of some of the elements. So here we are talking about activated charcoal. The second statement says that activated carbon exhibits a large surface area and a strong potential for absorbing heavy metals. I will try to correlate once I finish all the three statements. Third statement is activated carbon can be easily synthesized from environmental wastes with high carbon content. So as I already told you, what is activated carbon? It is an adsorbent which has the potential to hold on, wherein the elements or any content in the given phase or a solution can float, or it will not get immersed. That is the idea. So here activated carbon comes from various sources, especially charcoal. When we say charcoal, it is one of the thing. And why this question? When we speak of why this question is asked, many articles in current affairs, if you see last 2024, articles like some researchers or some students identified the potential of coconut shells, especially that was there in the news. And if you speak of US tariff was increased on coconut shell, or the import charge was increased, all these were in the news. So keeping that in the mind, maybe this question is asked, we can analyze. So let's speak about the correctness of the first statement. It is whether it is a good or attractive tool to remove pollutants from effluent streams. Yes, as I've told you already, it is an adsorbent. It has the capacity, especially in concerns related to pollution, water pollution especially. Okay, so first statement is right. Second statement, activated carbon exhibits large surface area and a strong potential, already explained. So statement 2 is also correct. Third statement, activated carbon can be easily synthesized. Can it be synthesized mean? Can it be artificially produced? Okay, from environmental waste with high carbon content. Yes, it is possible, and that is what the article says, and on that, from that basis only this statement is being asked. So the statements, especially the options, are little tricky. Usually we see two statements. We have seen two statements in the earlier question papers. This year we can see this pattern wherein there are three statements wherein you have to identify and correlate with the first statement especially. So here both now when we say both, statement 1 is right, statement 2 is right, statement 3 is also correct. So the answer would be both statement 2 and both statement 2 and 3 are correct, and both of them explain statement 1. So when we say, how do we choose this word? How we can decide that whether it explains, right? Identifying whether it is correct or not, it is easier, but identifying the options between first and second can be little tricky. So we have to identify the keywords here. Activated carbon exhibits a large surface area, it's like, and strong potential. So we say this good is the keyword for us to understand this statement. And when it comes to easily synthesized from environmental waste, so it is an application based statement. So we consider this tool is what we have, this word, particular word explains us, yes, it is a tool to do what? To synthesize this from environmental waste. So by understanding these keywords in the first statement, you can correlate with the statement 2 and statement 3. This is what we understand from the first question, and the answer is, as I have already mentioned, it is option A, solution is A. Then we will go to the second question. So here also we have 3 statements, same logic, let us look into it. The first statement says, studies indicate that carbon dioxide emissions, again there is one more question on carbon, from cement industry account for more than 5% of the global carbon emissions. So when it comes to cement industry, one might think that it is related to, so the focus is on cement industry. So the pattern one should understand is, every year the questions are asked based on what are the various sources of carbon emission. So understand the pattern. Do not think that okay, next year we should learn more about cement. It is not that. It is not that UPSC is interested in knowing how the cement is manufactured. But the thing is, it might take any sources of carbon emission and the focus can be there related to current affairs. Okay. So this year it is on cement industry. It is not that first time it's been asked. So let's look into the first statement. So they are asking that whether it is accounting for more than 5% of the global emission. Definitely yes, because cement industry is such an industry, it is a high carbon intensive industry. So the entire manufacturing process of cement will lead to the emission of carbon. So we will consider the first statement correct. Let's look into the other two. Silica bearing clay is mixed with limestone while manufacturing cement. Yes. So this particular can act as a raw material, and this is also one of the component when we make cement. So the entire process, the question is based on cement making process, wherein 3 statements are giving out the various phases in cement production. Third is limestone converted into lime. During the clinker production, it can also be called as calcination, we say. Calcination method, the other word for clinker production is calcination, wherein when limestone is converted into lime, it is subjected to high temperature. So this will lead to calcination, and of course one thing you have to keep in mind, anything that is burnt, anything which is under combustion, what is it emitting? Carbon dioxide. So the entire cement industry, or not only this industry, wherever there is a process of burning. Now calcination, clinker is like burning itself. So anything that burns emit carbon dioxide. So of course this is also right, and limestone means calcium carbonate is converted into CaO, we say, right? Limestone is converted into lime. Now this entire process has a burning combustion process. Here also silica bearing means again it emits carbon, and this particular fact is given in certain reports in the news. So all the 3 statements we can say it is right, and one correlate to the other, all the 3. So it is like stepwise. And one more trick of identifying these questions is like, you should identify the relation, or whether there is a continuity, whether the entire question is speaking about the same process. If it is totally different, still the statements are right or incorrect, that is a different thing. So you can connect, you can see the transition of the statements. That is how we understand this. All the 3 statements are correct. I think the answer is, solution is A here. Okay. So let's go to discuss the third question. So at the 28th United Statement 1, at the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference, India refrained from signing the declaration on climate health. So refrained means it did not sign. So one thing we have to notice is COP28. COP28 was in UAE, not in COP29 was the latest one we have, which was held in Baku. So in this pattern or this question, what do we understand? One clue, one hint what we get is, it is not about the current year's meeting we always have to read, it is also about, we have to know the previous meetings, very important. So what I would say is, the very goals or the 5 goals of India, what we call as Panchamrit. So Panchamrit was considered or given by our Prime Minister in COP26, which was held in Glasgow. So since then we still are going through the same targets, and we have the target here mentioned as, say for example, we have net zero emission by 2070, we have carbon intensive industries to reduce 2050, 2030, we have various targets like this. So of course, when we consider that, we have to study, this is a clue for us, we have to study from COP26 to till date. Anyway, in this COP28 what happened, one of the declarations which is related to health, wherein when we decarbonize the health sector, we can tackle climate change. And country like India is very specific when it signs certain agreements, certain declaration, because we cannot do the same how a developed country does. As we are in the path of this progress, in every sector, especially health sector requires more of revamping, and at this point of time, if we sign this declaration, there are certain terms and conditions to be followed, or of course at least to be climate resilient. Now what happened here was, India has refrained it. So refraining is the key word for us when we say, okay, so refraining means it has not entered this declaration. Then second statement, the COP28 declaration on climate and health is a binding declaration, and if signed it becomes mandatory to decarbonize health sector. So second part, see, once any agreement is signed, the parties has to follow it, but especially this declaration, when coming to this declaration, it is non-binding, it was not binding, it is a factual aspect. So one will wonder like, how will we remember this? Is it an easy question or moderate to difficult question? We can consider it as moderate to difficult because it was unexpected. Maybe you all had prepared for COP29, the question was on COP28. So this is a clue for us wherein we understand that we have to know the previous meetings, that is one thing. And the only focus should be wherein any meeting India attends, what is India's stance on various declarations, maybe whether it is a member which has signed, whether it has acknowledged, whether it has ratified, what is India's stance, what was India's comments. If you go through this, that is where the questions come from. So of course sometimes China and US can be considered, but the first priority should be given what is India's perspective towards this. So first we have already checked, and moreover this particular declaration, wherever India has made a comment, means that is important for us. So it is a non-binding declaration, so this statement is incorrect. Second is, if India's health sector is decarbonized, the resilience of its healthcare system may be compromised. Okay. Now coming to this, as we have seen, these are like the questions wherein we have three statements. Now the first thing we have to look into is whether it has a transition, whether there is a continuity, because we have to choose among these options. Now first statement is correct, second statement is also right, because why didn't India sign this declaration? The reason is this. Why? Therefore, see, India's health sector is decarbonized. If India's health sector is decarbonized, the resilience of its healthcare system may be compromised. Therefore, India did not sign. India refrained. So this statement explains the statement 1. What about the statement in middle? It is a factual statement where it will not connect to the transitioning part of first or third part. So going with that, we will go for option C, wherein only one of the statements 2 and 3 is correct, which is third one is right, and that explains statement 1. When do we understand it? Again telling you the trick, go through the transition, anything to do with it. use the words, as I told you, use the words like, now I use the word therefore. If you have a confusion between this and this, whether it is explaining which of the statements, you have to use the words therefore or because. Here, this is the reason why India did not sign, and here this is an abrupt statement wherein India has nothing to do with it. It is the statement regarding the declaration itself. So first and third statements connects well. So we go for factually is also correct, and we go for the third statement. So option is C. We go to the next question. Again, about the convention, climate change, again related to carbon. Now Article 6, this very question was in the news throughout the year. Of course, we learned static part, what is Paris Agreement, what is Kyoto Protocol, all the conferences, highlights and all that. Why this question? This question is because Article 6 was in the news, Article 6.2, 6.8, these are the clauses we had. What is it all about? So to brief it up, let me explain what is Article 6 first. Article 6 is a clause which is part of Paris Agreement, which was very many articles were published, so which speaks about carbon market and non-carbon market. So carbon market and non-carbon market, in the sense we derive these aspects from Kyoto Protocol. In Kyoto Protocol, it gave a base, it gave an understanding about three mechanisms. It is like carbon credit, carbon market, or a clean development mechanism. So whatever we have today, in a way, it is the base, the foundation is in Kyoto. As we say that it was like all we practice today is more of when we say the phrase such as it is like old wine in the new bottle. By then the members did not agree, did not acknowledge, and they were not ready, anyone, whether it is developing or developed nations. But today there is a need, it is the need of the hour to accept it. So Article 6 speaks about that carbon and non-carbon, wherein certain field, certain area, certain arena wherein it is carbon based, carbon intensive industries, and certain are not. How do we categorize it? So let's go through the statements and we will understand it better. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on climate change is frequently discussed in global discussion on sustainable development and climate change. There is nothing called as factual here. It is a general statement wherein, yes, was it discussed? Yes. It is why it is frequently discussed, because of difference of opinions of the countries. So it gives an option in the sense like carbon credit. So if one country or one company is emitting extra carbon, or it is retaining or refraining from emitting carbon, the other country or company can make use of this carbon credit. So it is equated. So nobody is emitting excess anywhere, and those who are refraining from emitting, the other company or country. Why am I using company and country? Because if it is at the national level, it is a company or a industry. If it is at the global level, it is country. So it is about balancing the carbon emission in the atmosphere. So of course there was discussion at the global level. So definitely statement 1 is right. Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on climate change sets out the principles of carbon markets. Of course, yes, I just told you, it is all about carbon market means selling or trading the carbon credits. What are carbon credits? As I've just told you, every company or country will be having a cap or a limit. So to what extent they can emit carbon. So this article of course speaks about carbon credits and sets a target. Today we have, under Paris Agreement, we have something called as NDC, nationally determined contributions. It is setting target, and because it is setting target, countries are, after Paris Agreement, every year when they go to convention, we have something called as NDC report. Why do we submit that report? Because we have a target and it has set. But the thing is, why it is better than Kyoto? Paris is better than Kyoto. Kyoto was a top-down approach. So the core committee will decide what countries has to follow. But in Paris Agreement, the countries will set a target. In the previous question I have mentioned that Panchamrit is our target, 5 goals is our target. So we are setting the target, it makes us mandatorily to set the target and submit the report. And what have we done so far to fight climate change? That of course it is mentioned in Article 6. We have clauses, of course, sections 6.2, 6.8 and all that, everything was in the news. So it is very generally based question. They have not gone into detail, luckily for us, they have not gone into detail 6.2, 6.8 and all, just Article 6. What is the crux of Article 6? That is what it's been asked. Then Article 6 of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change intends to promote inter-country non-market strategies to reach their climate targets. Yes. So this entire thing speaks about carbon market itself. Article 6 means carbon market, and there are two ways, carbon and non-carbon market mechanisms. So according to the sections we have, so one is connected to the other two. So we go for option A here, wherein both of them explain the previous statement. So there is a clear transition, we can say, there is no abrupt statement in between. So it is a very clear transition. All the three statements are connected to each other, and which is factually correct. And the takeaway from this question, what do we learn here? Paris Agreement is, though it happened somewhere in 2015, still today it is relevant, still it is relevant, because this question is purely taken from current affairs. First you should have a foundation base of the static part of Paris Agreement, the core concept. Then you have to relate it to current affairs. That is when it will be easier for you to solve. Yes. So we will move on to the next question. So this is a direct question. Which one of the following launched the Nature Solutions Finance Hub Asia and the Pacific? Now the answer is Asian Development Bank, a direct question we have, which is a current affairs based question it is, and this is also related to climate change. So say I think some $2 billion have been invested on this particular aspect, wherein nature solutions, or we call it as even NBS, nature based solutions. For fighting climate change, we find solution in nature. For that, exclusively this finance hub is launched for every country, and the funding agency is ADB. In all the developed and developing countries, especially developing countries, where we are sourcing out raw materials from the nature to tackle climate change. So at least one question like this out of the blue there will be there, maybe question based on a report, or maybe regarding these banks, right? So just because ADB is there, let's not consider only ADB is very important point here. So all these are very important for us for the upcoming next exams. So we say the current year's incorrect options can be next year's question paper's clue. That is what we look into. So this is a straight away direct question. We consider A as the right answer. Moving on to the next question, direct air capture. So like the question paper is so saturated with carbon only, full of carbon. So this is a very old topic. It is not that 2024 we had. Since 2022-23 this is in the news. The term itself suggests it is self-explanatory, right? Direct air capture. What is direct air capture? So releasing carbon first, then again capturing back. That is the irony we are doing. So regarding this, an emerging technology, slowly it is emerging, but country like India, it requires more investment and infrastructure, but we still are trying to do it. In the recent articles when we see, we are able to do it, and many developed countries already have done it. Now, which of the following statements are correct regarding this? The first statement, it can be used as a way of carbon sequestration. The word sequestration means storage. So the question comes in, we capture carbon, right? What's next? What are we going to do with the carbon? We have to store it. So sequestration means storing the captured carbon. So first thing is, how do we capture it directly? How do we do it? It is like from the source. Now from the thermal power plants, or from the factories, or from various industries, the emission that is given out where the carbon is emitted. So directly there can be filters fixed, or maybe there be a connection infrastructure which is maintained, wherein the air before it reaches, or maybe it reaches to the atmosphere, it can be captured from the atmosphere. So we cannot stop carbon being emitted. Carbon is anyway emitted. When you burn something, as I have already mentioned, it is emitted. But Can we reduce the intensity in the atmosphere? Yes. What are we going to do? We are removing by directly connected maybe to the chimneys or maybe pipes whatsoever, and we connect it to various carbon sinks, maybe soil or maybe ocean, deeper soil, or maybe in the forest soil, wherein the carbon is stored there. So of course this is a way of carbon sequestration, not only capturing but also storing. So first statement is right. It can be a valuable approach for plastic production and in food processing. Now valuable approach, when we say anywhere when it comes to plastic production, yes, plastic production, polymers, various polymers, it includes carbon, and when it comes to food processing we are talking about preservatives. So carbonated, again carbon is there, so it is food processing. So it is a valuable approach, yes. So this statement is also correct. Then in aviation it can be a source of carbon for combining with hydrogen to create synthetic low carbon fuel. We call it as e-fuel. Okay, this thing, especially in the technology, something called as Airbus. The carbon in the air will be captured through the running turbines, small turbines on the bus, and it will be captured and it will be stored elsewhere. So in this case all the three technologies are correct, and it is an application based question. Direct air capture technology is an application based question. So we consider for this question we have answer as C, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, yes, C. Next, this is one question we have on biodiversity, and very unique question they have asked. And one thing is, you cannot say that as, when there is a unique word or when any unique species have been asked, rather than complaining, it is our duty to know whatever species are there in the news throughout the year. Now tarantulas, for a basic person maybe we cannot expect. For an aspirant, because you go through the news and all, tarantulas are spiders, as simple as that. So it is a species, peacock tarantulas are given, I mean it is given. So let's look into it. Consider the following statements regarding the species. First statement, it is an omnivorous crustacean. When a person knows it is a spider, it is a no-brainer, it is very easy. Okay, definitely it is not a crustacean, it is an arthropod. So it is not a crustacean. Crustaceans are what? Crabs, shrimps, right, lobsters, all are crustaceans with a shell. So tarantulas are spiders, but a different group altogether. Crustacean, when we speak of crustaceans, I have already mentioned this is incorrect. And what about being omnivores? This is one pattern we see in every exam. At least whenever they ask about a species, the diet is being asked. So if you know tarantulas are spiders, and what do spiders eat? Basic knowledge, spiders eat insects. So they are basically carnivores, not omnivores. So this statement is incorrect. So this basic knowledge is being expected from the aspirants, you should know. If you do not know tarantulas, then better you forget this question. So you should know they are that. Then rest of the statements will be easier. Now its natural habitat in India is limited to some forest. Luckily for us, it is a very vague and general statement. When it is given, it is unique and all, obviously it will be limited. But if you know actual aspect of it, fact of it, the word here, this Guti tarantula mean, it is a place, a small village in Andhra Pradesh. So the name comes from that place. So it is endemic to Eastern Ghats. And when it is given limited, questions go like that only. But factually, factual knowledge is very important. Third statement, in its natural habitat, it is an arboreal species. Yes. So this tarantula, specifically peacock tarantula, is an arboreal species. It is found on trees. What are arboreal? The organisms which live on trees are called as arboreal. Now, considering this, we have first statement incorrect, second statement is right, and third statement is also correct. So answer is D, 2 and 3. Okay. We'll move on to the next question. Now again, carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide emissions in India are less than 0.5 trillion carbon per capita. Carbon dioxide per capita emission is given. Then second statement, in terms of carbon dioxide emissions from fuel combustion, India ranks second in Asia Pacific region. These questions might have come from a report that is in the news. There will be certain reports that will be mentioned about the current status of India's carbon emission or US China carbon emission. So that will be there in the current affairs. And electricity and heat producers are the largest sources of carbon dioxide emissions in India. Coming to the first statement. First statement is incorrect because when you see the report, it is based on the report I have already told you. So it is more than that, it is not less than that. It is approximately, if we see 1.7 tons, so 1.77. So when we consider this, it is never less than 0.5. Even with a slight like wild guess, if you want to take a risk, because we have this top 3 countries who are the global greenhouse gas emitters mean, we have the US, China and India, or according to China we say it may be US, China and India. According to US it would be China, US and India, but ultimately India is in the 3rd position. These are the 3 global greenhouse gas emitters, the giants, okay. So definitely it cannot be this low when we speak of the 3rd position. This is like a old fact, we have been studying from past many years. We know these are the 3 top 3 emitters. So considering that fact also you can arrive at a conclusion, but you should be knowing the factual point. So speaking of this, the first statement, when we see according to the fact, India emits more than this, so the first statement is incorrect. Then second statement, factual aspect, so we consider it is correct according to its position, India's position. Now coming to the third statement, electricity and heat producers are the largest sources of carbon dioxide emissions in India. One might be confused whether it is correct or not. Take it from me, anywhere in the world, not only in India, anywhere in the world, these are the major sources, electricity and heat producers. This could be and this will be the highest or the largest sources of carbon dioxide emissions, not only in India, anywhere also. So we consider the third statement correct. So 2 and 3 is our answer. So C is the right option. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So this particular question we were talking, or when we look into this question, agriculture based question we can say, one agriculture based and slightly related to environment as well. And you might wonder, how will we know that this year this particular crops can be asked? We know that we have to study about various crops in agriculture, geography, even environment. But why this question? Again, the source lies in current affairs, no doubt in it. Among these, one crop would be in the news. So similar crops or any random crops can be asked, which can be a solvable one. It is not that very tricky or something. Basic idea should be there. Now speaking of the current affairs where I told you the source, this cassava or tapioca, what we say, what kind of plant it is and why this was in news. Now this National Tuber Research Institute. So under this, researchers have identified the importance of cassava in various applications, and various species varieties were discovered, that was in the news. And apart from that, cassava at its demand at the global level and its nutritional aspect, everything was mentioned in the news. So that is the reason they have asked this question. Luckily for us, not too much of detail about cassava, just what is it, what kind of plant it is. So tapioca, what we call. So cassava is a woody shrub. So the idea is, how does it grow? If you try to picturize, if you know some awareness about the crops, it is easier, it is a no-brainer. There is no technical details asked. How does it look? How does a plant look like? So this is woody shrub, which is correct. Woody shrub means which has the fixture or what's the nature of a tree wherein the stem or the roots are well developed. Now for cassava, it is a shrub but it doesn't look like a tree, but still it has this wood component in it. So we consider the first pair is correct because the question is asked about to match the pairs. First pair is right. Ginger herb with pseudo stem. So ginger is a herb which we know which has pseudo stem because it is attached to the leaves itself. There is no stem in reality, it just grows, the leaves grows from the stem itself, it looks like a stem. So pseudo stem means false stem. So it doesn't have a stem. So that is why we consider this pair is also correct. Malabar spinach or herbaceous climber. It is a climber like creeper. It is also Malabar spinach. When we say, we know spinach, this is Malabar spinach. South India, especially in Western Ghats, South Indians will be knowing about this spinach because we grow it in our kitchen gardens, and this has a nutritional or say nutritional similarity like other spinach species, and it is not, does not have the root or the stem like wood or shrub. It is a climber and it is kind of a succulent also. It is more juicy kind of a stem it has and branches. So it is a climber basically, and it is herbaceous. Herbaceous means we should know the difference, herb, shrub and tree. This is like a school level understanding we have. Herb means which is the stem and the roots are less developed and it has more thin and delicate. Shrub is the growth is more bigger than the herb, and when it comes to leaves and the foliage, the leaves, the fruits and the flowers are sturdy than the herb. And shrub, when we speak of the wood or the woody trees or the trees itself, it has well developed stem and roots. That is how we differentiate. This is a school level aspect. So Malabar spinach is also right. Mint can be annual, but it is not a shrub. Everybody knows how a mint leaves or a plant look like. It is not a shrub. Basically it is a herb. So that is where the correction comes from. So it is a herb here for us. So this pair is incorrect. Papaya, woody shrub. So speaking of this, it is considered when we look at the growth of the papaya tree, it is not a well developed stem it has, or like any other trees. It is more delicate, more stronger than the herb and less stronger than the tree. It falls between a shrub. So it is when we speak of this, the woody part is incorrect, shrub is right. Okay, so that is where the pair is incorrect. So we go for B, which is only 3. The first 3 pairs are correct and the other pair. So it is all about the tricky part here is the words they have used, shrub, herb and tree. You can consider this as a very important topic even for your upcoming exams. So they are playing with these nature of the plant varieties, and the question comes from this very topic, and they have gone through the similar areas wherein checking the general awareness of the student. So moving on to the next question. Okay, now it speaks about rainforests, and or maybe the focus is on oxygen. Let's go with the first statement. Rainforests produce more oxygen than that produced by the oceans. So there is a comparison between rainforest and the ocean. We'll look into it. Marine phytoplankton and photosynthetic bacteria produce about 50% of the world's oxygen. Well oxygenated surface water contains several folds higher oxygen than that in the atmosphere. Air and water is compared. Now the first statement, rainforests produce more oxygen than that produced by the oceans. It is a factual statement. We know that evolution started from ocean. That's first thing. And the phytoplanktons, the photosynthetic bacteria, or it may be blue-green algae or any of the phytoplanktons, we have in wide varieties in ocean when compared to forest. And even if we speak of the evolution, or when we speak of the growth of all these species, ocean came first, we know that. So, or the species developed in ocean first. So when we say it is like, it's just when we compare the when it was evolved, the millions of years ago, the ocean organisms were the first to arrive, and trees were just 400 million years ago. Trees, we see this trees, development of the trees, various forest ecosystem just 400 billion years ago. But when we compare the ocean's evolution, or maybe the species there, it goes for thousands of years of evolution. So speaking of that, even today ocean have more capacity of production of oxygen than rainforest. Today some reports also say that we are thinking that by planting trees we can absorb more carbon and oxygen can be given out, but that is not the thing. We need ocean first. Oceans are the source of oxygen, or oceans is the main source of oxygen when compared to trees. Trees, they do, yes, but here where we get a lot of oxygen. And even if even if in terms of evolution, so this is incorrect. Rainforest do produce oxygen, but not more than ocean. When we compare, it is less only. So oceans have the highest capacity, considering blue-green algae, the primitive algae. So you can apply that example as well. Now, marine phytoplankton and photosynthetic bacteria produce about 50% of the world's oxygen. Second statement, once we acknowledge the previous one, wherein ocean have the more capacity, yes, 50% of the oxygen comes from the ocean itself. Next, well oxygenated surface water contains several folds higher oxygen than that in the atmospheric air. This is incorrect. This is incorrect because the air has more capacity to hold oxygen when compared to water. Okay, so water, even when we speak of the clean water itself has some 8 mg per liter. That is the amount of oxygen present in water. 8 mg is the approximate value. So 8 mg is the amount of oxygen present in clean water. Anything that is more is polluted water, we say, or sorry, less is polluted water. So when we compare water and air as two different medium, air has the more capacity to hold oxygen because the very source of oxygen lies in atmosphere, a simple logic. So even though they might have given different words to confuse, like surface water or well oxygenated surface water contains more oxygen, how much ever it is well oxygenated, when we compare the capacity, remember water has lower capacity to hold oxygen but air has more capacity. This is the factual aspect, a science, general science aspect. So coming to this point wherein this statement is incorrect, first wherein second statement is right, we go for option B, 2 only is the right answer. Moving on to the next question. Actually, this can be a repeated question. Many years ago this question was asked. So somehow like a nostalgic question has come back. Artificial rain. Artificial rain, why it was in news? That is the first thing. Or why did they ask out of the blue? Did they ask just because from the previous year question paper? No. One thing is two aspects were there. One is UAE in Dubai, I guess, wherein they did this cloud seeding. Artificial rain is nothing but the other name what we call as cloud seeding. So cloud seeding was done in Dubai for this rain. That was one thing. And one more thing is air pollution in Delhi is also related to this. So two different news, articles were there, and the idea of asking question, they did not go intense, they just asked what are the chemicals. It's a very factual question. Artificial way of causing rainfall to reduce air pollution makes use of silver iodide and potassium iodide. This is a basic science question, and why I told you Delhi's air pollution mattered here, that is where the question is coming from. So Delhi's air pollution will be there throughout the year. That is where the question is coming from. Some might think that okay, in Middle East this cloud seeding was done. It could be, it is an international affairs. They always focus on the national level affairs. That is where the question comes from. Maybe you can relate here as well. In mains you can use these examples, but the source of the question comes from our Delhi's air pollution. So it is a direct no-brainer. So we go for silver iodide and potassium iodide. Option A. Moving on to the next question. Which organization, again this is a factual based question, organization, reports, all these are, there will be a compulsory mandatory question will be there in the question paper, has enacted the nature restoration law to tackle climate change and biodiversity loss. The answer is European Union. So this particular aspect is regarding land degradation. What is the very idea of this program or this law? Nature restoration law is about 20% of the land has to be restored by 2030 and all the degraded land has to be restored by 2050. This is the law which is applied or which has been enacted. I think August 2024 it was enacted or it came into force in EU, and it has been implemented in all the European nations, EU, European Union, and this is the target. Target is 20% of the land which has degraded because of various human activities has to be restored by 2030, and all the land which is degraded in European Union has to be restored by 2050. That was the idea. A current affairs and international affairs news, and we relate it to climate change again because there was a mention, especially when we relate to the convention, I would say it was UNCCD. United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. In that convention was held last year, 2024, right? So because of that, this question is being asked. One of the initiatives of other countries, wherein what are they doing for the restoration of the land. India is also part of this convention. So this is where the question is coming from. The answer is A. Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Okay, the question is about ethanol. Let's go to the statement directly. Of the two major ethanol producers in the world, that is Brazil and United States of America, the former produces more ethanol than the latter. Now, the first fact what they have given is correct. These are the two major ethanol producers. Okay, so both Brazil and the US contributes about 80% of the combining them together. World's 80% of ethanol production comes from these two countries combined. Now the statement is not that. The question, the statement is these are the producers. Yes, Brazil and United States of America, the former producers. Former is like Brazil produces more ethanol than the latter. So they say that Brazil is the highest producer of ethanol, which is vice versa, which is incorrect. US is the highest, the largest producer of ethanol, then the second place is Brazil. So both the countries are the top producers, yes, but just the factual error here, you have to reverse it. So in that case, the first statement is incorrect. Okay, so US is the highest or the largest, then comes Brazil. Second statement, unlike in the United States of America, where corn is the principal feedstock for, they are mentioning about the source, corn is the principal feedstock for ethanol production, sugarcane is the principal feedstock for ethanol production in Brazil, which is true. Brazil is the largest producer of the sugar itself, so South America, most of the countries. So Brazil is right, and United States of America, the very major crop, maize, corn is the main or the staple food. How we have rice in India, they have corn in America. This is a basic idea one should have. Anyway, it can be moderate to difficult question, but ethanol is the word that we see, a buzzword we have seen throughout the year. So that is where it is coming from. Even India is progressing towards blending ethanol. So blending ethanol means we need import from other countries as well. So in that case, the production based question is been asked, who is the largest producer. This is one pattern we have seen in the previous year also. When it comes to certain crops, when it comes to certain commodities, they do ask about the largest producers. Now ethanol is related to India because we blend ethanol with petrol, and we know ethanol, when we speak of ethanol, it is a clean fuel, or where we source it out from nature, and we have generations also. Maybe in the previous video or the analysis of the previous year question paper, I have mentioned that ethanol is a very important area itself. Anything about it can be asked. Okay, anything about could have been asked, so it is there here as of now. And we have generations also, first generation, second generation, third generation and fourth generation ethanol, 1G, 2G and all that. So first generation is from food crops. First generation ethanol is from food crops, second generation is from non-food crops, third generation ethanol is from algae, fourth generation is from genetically modified, GM, genetically modified crops. So we are in the process of transitioning between food to non-food. We are trying that as of now. That was in the news as of now, but still we are dependent. Import dependency is there, that is why this question. And second statement is right, and we go to this option, D. Statement 1 is not correct, statement 2 is correct. So option D is the right answer. I hope it is analyzed as well. So this is what we have from environmental science. Thank you.